We go. We're live.
We're live. Welcome everyone this morning. I know I've had apologies from Dimitri from Newport, so I think Laura's standing in for him, and from Mary-Ann from Monmouthshire, so Paul is standing in for her. Any other apologies we need to note this morning?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Jane. Welcome everyone. Second item on the agenda then is declarations of interest. Anything to note here? No, if anything does come up during the meeting, then of course raise your hand and I'll try and bring you in and get Jane's advice on that. The third agenda item then is the minutes from the meeting on the 16th of December last year. Seems like a long time ago. Is everyone happy with those? Anything arising from those minutes? Are we all happy then to agree those?
Move them, Chair.
Great, hanging no dissent, so those are moved. Thanks, Steve. Item 4 then is the 25-26 budget report. Are we okay to move to that now?
Yeah.
I make the recommendations at paragraph 2 of this report. If I hand over, then yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everybody. So this report sets out the 25-26 budget requirement for CCR. It should be read alongside the 25-26 annual business plan, item 5 on today's agenda, which outlines the key deliverables to be achieved within that budget. The first point to note really is that the additional workload that comes with being a public body has put significant strain on staff and resource in order for us to meet our statutory and contractual obligations. We've got a large number of staff on fixed-term, locum or agency contracts, which is bringing instability and operational risk to the organisation. And as a result of this, a draft staffing budget was brought to and subsequently approved at the November SEWCJC meeting to allow us to initiate a staffing restructure. Within the report, the revenue budget is set out on a component basis for the first time this year, reflecting our position as a public body now, and that will bring increased visibility and accountability to budget holders as well. The quantum of the budget is broadly comparable with the figures outlined in the November report and outlines a total budget requirement of £6,699,318. Financing this additional resource in the current economic climate is proving incredibly challenging. And given the financial challenges faced by local authorities as well, it's proposed within the report that local authority revenue contributions are frozen at the 2024-25 rates. Brycheiniog National Park contributions are calculated as a proportion of the Strategic Development Plan budget. And for 2025-26, this has been calculated as £2,992. In order to fund this year's budget, it's proposed to utilise 1.3 million of interest on balances as an underwrite, pending further discussions on some funding streams, including opportunities for shared prosperity funding and ongoing discussions with Welsh Government as well. So this is effectively our usable reserves, and whilst there's an analysis within the paper showing that this is affordable for next year, it should be seen as an option of last resort and is not a sustainable position in the long term. Given the developmental stage of where we're at as a CJC at the moment, we should be looking to increase our financial resilience through building up reserves rather than utilising them at this stage. This is a risk that was highlighted by the chair of the Governance and Audit Subcommittee when they considered a draft version of this report at their meeting on the 17th of January. I believe Alan is observing the call this morning. And a draft version of this report was also circulated to the 10 Section 151 officers and discussed at our recent quarterly meeting as well. The statutory duties element of the CJC currently receive no co-funding, and serious consideration must now be given to appropriately resourcing the CJC on a sustainable basis, with an independent review of the future requirements of the CJC being agreed at the November meeting, and that's due to be commissioned shortly, which will be the first step in addressing the long-term resourcing challenges highlighted in the report. and will also inform the development of a medium-term financial plan, which will follow early in 2025-26. The report also outlines the wider investment fund budget for 25-26, which is set at 62.179 million, as well as an indicative longer-term programme. As unallocated wider investment fund balances continue to reduce, a critical piece of work is to develop a longer-term funding strategy. And again, that will be that independent review work that I mentioned earlier. The funding of the 25-26 budget requires a drawdown of just over £1.8 million, the £120 million agreed local authority capital contributions. And following discussions with the quarterly section 151 officer meeting, it's been agreed this will be invoiced on the 1st of April to aid with cash flow management. So, Chair, just to bring you to the recommendations within the report then, they are to approve the operational budget of £6,699,318, approve the utilisation of £1,289,363 of accumulated interest on balances as an underwrite to us. We await confirmation on other sources of funding. Approve local authority contributions of £1,278,963. Approve Ban Ebrahimiad National Park Authority contributions of £2,992. And then finally, Chair, to approve the wider investment fund budget and indicative long-term programme. Happy to get questions.
Thanks, Liam. Could I open up for any questions then? Anyone with any good questions on this one? John.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got my camera on. The connection is terrible for some reason. It's back to the initial opening statement, I suppose, was mentioned. We're now a public body, so there'll be increased scrutiny about expenditure. And on table 3, on page 17, there's a prior year revenue budget comparison table, which is really useful compared to 24-25, 25-26. But there's a line there on supplies and services of an increase of 27% or over £150,000. I can see in the narrative it's primarily linked to the cost of MIPIM. I'm not criticising attending MIPIM as a cost of doing business, but being a public body, I know I come under agenda and intense scrutiny of any money that goes this direction, and I just think we need to better understand this increase in supplies and services. And I'm assuming 150 is not the full cost, or not the cost of attending MIPIM. Just like to understand that better, because it's, it's a public record, public body, will be questioned.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Spandrick. So in terms of last was our first, the budget setting process last year was the first year of setting a budget for a public body. And within that, you'll see that there was a greater level of contingency, recognising the sort of uncertainty that we were going into. So in terms of the cost of MIPIM, that in the current year, that was included within the contingency element. So part of that is offset between, you can see the contingency this year is reduced by 55%, and supplies and services is increased by 27%. So that isn't the full cost of MIPIM, but we do get external sponsorship to support attendance at what is a key strategic development area for us. So yeah, that's why it looks as if it's increased by potentially more than it actually has, if that makes sense, because there's been a corresponding offset in contingency, but also within supplies and services, you've got inflationary pressures that have had an impact on that budget line as well.
And just to say, Councillor Spandrick, as well as Liam pointed out, the idea with MIPIM is we get the cost largely, if not wholly, offset by sponsorship and partnership contributions from the private sector. I know that was a part of a report that came to you in, I think it was last September. But again, we're hoping for another discussion on MIPIM and the plan for 2025 in the next few weeks. So hopefully that will bring everything together at that point.
Okay, thanks. I just point out because it's public records, the way it's written at the moment, perhaps next time you need to rethink how the narrative comes across.
Okay, any further questions on the screen? Yes, I was going to say, in the opening ceremony, I still want to push him as chair. Obviously, the local authority contributions being frozen is welcome. I'm sure for us all as authorities trying to set budgets. I guess on the flip side of that, we've got to note those audit comments and the point about that John made about new burdens as a public body. Also the pressure on our small core staff as well. I'm very wary of that. And I guess those are two things we have to balance, really, aren't they? Obviously the wish for us not to have to set any more money aside and increase our medium-term financial plan gaps that we all have, but also that need to make sure that things are put on a sustainable footing. I guess how we balance that going forward. I guess the question that stems from that is, are we having sort of conversations during the year, for example, on the point on reserves, to see how maybe we could work in conjunction with one another to cover risk in terms of reserves, so that we don't risk sort of double insuring, so to speak, as the 10 local authorities and then CCR on top?
Yeah, so I meet quarterly with the Section 151 officers. My understanding is that they set aside the capital contributions, which are known, that 120 million pounds, but they don't specifically set aside any ring-fenced reserves over and above the revenue contributions for the CJC.
But I think, Chair, it's a really good point, and your point about how do we manage sustainably going forward, as we've stated in the report. I think anything we've held in relation to balances that we'd like to have as part of our reserve policy, we haven't been able to do that in recent years. And I think that does make that, it does mean that we have to look at that position moving forward. So obviously we'd like to try and build our own liquidity so that if there are any liabilities, we're able to meet those. So that's something I think we need to start a conversation on sooner this year, rather than wait until around September time, as we do usually. I think it's important we start a very quick conversation around that financial sustainability, drawn in obviously some of the resources that Liam has spoken about, hopefully around things like the Shared Prosperity Fund, which we've got a great track record in terms of delivery. We are in dialogue with Welsh Government about contributions to core costs around the Strategic Transport Plan and the Strategic Development Plan. But clearly there still is an overhead which is significant in relation to core costs. And coupled with the review that Liam spoke about, an independent review to see what it takes to run a CJC of this size and scale, I think that would be really good in feeding into those early conversations, which, as I stated, I think we need to have soonest, really.
That's welcome, because I guess it's the question of what are our risks and how do we sort of cross-reference those and see how we cover them together. I think all levels of government need to do that so that we're not both effectively insuring against the same event, and therefore, setting aside money that doesn't need to be set aside. Essentially, I think there's just a way to do that in partnership. That's really welcome that we're having those conversations. Right. Any other questions on that report? If not, are we happy to move to the recommendations, paragraph 2? Liam's read them out, so I won't propose to read them out in their entirety again, because they're there at paragraph 2. Yep, 2.1 to 2.6. And if I can have a mover and a seconder for those recommendations, please.
Happy to move, Chair.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, second.
And John has seconded. John Stanzik has seconded. So if I take the votes in order then, can I have Brecon Beacons National Park, Julian?
Agree, Chair.
Thank you. Bridgend, John?
Yeah, agree the motion. Pass.
Thank you. RCT? Shall I move to Merthyr?
Yeah, I'm for.
Thanks, Brent. The Vale, please.
Agree, Chair.
Cardiff, Hugh.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
Thanks, Hugh. Morning. Caerphilly.
Agreed.
Thanks, Sean. Newport.
Agreed.
Thanks, Laura. Gwent.
Agreed, Chair.
Thanks, Steve. Monmouthshire.
Agreed.
Thanks, Paul. Torvine, agreed. That's me.
It's just, and Councillor Morgan.
Okay.
To come back. Let me just see if he's on.
just to confirm, sorry, I couldn't get the mute, so yes.
Thanks. I thought that's Andrew from RCT. Agreed. So that's a full house. Thank you very much, members. So then we move on to item 5, which is the annual business plan 25-26, which is obviously very much linked with that initial report. And the plan is appendix 1 of that report, the recommendations of paragraph 2.
I'll take that, Chair. Thank you very much. So good morning, members. So this is the purpose of the report is to set out the key principles and provisions underpinning the 25-26 annual business plan for South East Wales Corporate Joint Committee. This business plan comes at an important moment for CCR. We've just completing our first full year as a newly formed public body of Corporate Joint Committee. It is an integrated plan which brings together CCR City Deal activity with the investment zone, which is very much moving forward, and shared prosperity funds. The regional economic and industrial plan and the strategic business plan do provide the strategic framework as noted in the report, but it's worth noting that we are enacting our new statutory powers, economic wellbeing, regional transport planning and strategic spatial planning, all at different stages of maturity. And we recognise that to maximise the opportunity for regional growth through these new powers, we'll be developing a revised 5-year strategic plan and medium-term financial plan to follow on from this. As pointed out both in the annual business plan and the report, this is about maintaining our focus for a stronger, fairer and greener city region. So our ambition remains unchanged. We want to create the conditions for shared prosperity across our 10 local authorities. And we're committed to our strategic goals as outlined in our regional economic and industrial plan of being more competitive, connected and resilient. We are continuing to work obviously with Welsh Government and other key partners and stakeholders, with Welsh Government particularly to understand the future role of corporate joint committees and the potential for further developing that agenda. So in the annual business plan, we set that context allied to the fact that we are developing a narrative to the region and a new set of propositions to take forward to the future. You'll see within the annual business report, our strategic goals are clearly laid out. I won't go into those in detail, but for each of the strategic goals, we highlight our key activities. Those activities are the activities which we think are of significance, which will underwrite the delivery of the strategic goals. And that's accompanied by a delivery plan. And in the delivery plan, we set milestones against those objectives, the objectives that we clearly laid out in our regional economic and industrial plan in 2023. Finally, in terms of managing and delivering, governance, funding, monitoring, evaluation all form a critical part of this. So we're now building on the foundations of our first year as a corporate joint committee. Our governance is maturing in line with the CJC regulations. That allows us to some degree to rationalise existing arrangements while maintaining that transparency, the accountability and the rigour. The funding model is developing towards an integrated model of funding, obviously, as we move forward. And the plan recognises that 25-26 builds on this year of transition in 24-25. With that, I'll move to the recommendations that are in paragraph 2, where it's recommended that the Corporate Joint Committee approves the annual business plan set out in Appendix 1.
Thanks, Glenn. And just a big thank you to all the staff that have been involved in this transition, really, to the place we are now. I know it's involved a lot of work behind the scenes, and a lot of that sometimes goes unnoticed because it is behind the scenes, but it's very much appreciated. Any questions or reports? John.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if I got up the wrong side of bed this morning, but great. Welcome to the review plan. Some great content there and some brilliant photos of the Wolf Mountain at the top of Jane County Barragh, the Rhondda and Taff. But I don't know if it's a slight mistake on page 40. There's a map there showing the whole CCR area, track record of successful investment. And there's a brown dot there showing Awenny Road in Bridgend, but the brown dot is several miles away from where Awenny Road site is, as in the Maesteg Llinvi Valley is shown there, I think, alongside the M4. Just being a bit picky, but I want to get that map correct if we're going to go out to the public to see this. So it's page 40 of the
Apologies, Councillor Bandsworth, I can see. I think we need to go a bit further north. You're right.
Yeah, to the left hand, yeah.
Looks like a London Underground map style, sort of convenient to the locations opposed to accuracy.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bandsworth. We'll have that corrected.
Sean. Right.
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's not a question from me, it's just a comment. As you all know, I've voiced it many times that I don't think that GDP is the best measure of growth, because GDP grows while our communities struggle. But I would just like to say that this report and this business plan does address that, because the business plan very much revolves around our communities and growth in jobs and security and energy efficiency and all the things that a community does need and does feel and is impacted by, whereas GDP is something that is more for central governments and central banks. But yeah, I'm very happy to go along with this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. That's a point you consistently make about the need for getting it right, not just goals like GDP that can sometimes sort of brush over some of those things. Very much agree. Any other questions? I guess my question was looking at the milestones on page 49. It's how we make sure that this is a document that we keep coming back to and keep cross-referencing and sort of testing ourselves against to check that this is the sort of the golden thread that we're following. I know the point you make on it, there's loads of stuff that we're bringing together at the moment, you know, CCR stuff, investment zone, SPF, the work on the RTP, spatial planning. There's so many things that we're bringing together. I think we need to make sure that this is the kind of document that grounds us and acts as that thread running through everything that we do. Because I look forward to this coming back at future meetings to sort of, as the year goes forward, we can almost sort of test ourselves against.
So, Chair, you will have quarterly reports against this, as you do now, which is your quarterly performance report. But I think it's a really good point that you make, because it's become much more detailed now, hasn't it? There are so many other significant parts. And just to give assurance, so for example, around the regional transport plan, we've got the regional transport subcommittee. Around the STP, we've got the STP strategic subcommittee. We've got scrutiny now, very busily involved and meeting very frequently alongside things like audit and governance. To Councillor Morgan's point, I think around wellbeing economy, we've got the regional growth board deployed now, doing a really good piece of work around what is economic wellbeing, what does good look like, how do we recognise inclusive growth and seek to promote it. So the mechanisms that we have now, I guess, are broader than ever. But you're right, bringing these back in a compelling way, using them to really track and drill progress, I think is going to be ever more important. And that additional level of security, it does come with a budgetary burden, as you pointed out, but I think really takes on renewed significance as we move forward. Yes, the Corporate Joint Committee still has the overview, but it's recognising now that we have an entire governance structure which is really focused on taking this forward and making sure that we're accountable for the goals that have been set.
Thanks, Kelly. Julian.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that the Brecon Beacons National Park is obviously, as an authority, fairly peripheral perhaps to the capital region proposals we've had. I'm very happy to support, in principle, if required to do so, the report going forward and so forth. I'd just like to say that I think our contribution as a National Park Authority hopefully will grow within this document, particularly as we've got a heading, a greener city region. I think the National Park in particular can help to provide work towards that. So I'd welcome the report and welcome continuing growth in our engagement in it in future years. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. In that tone, your contributions are very much welcome. As you say, as we move broader into things about not only the green economy, but also physical activity and things like that. I think that the national park becomes ever more important there. So I wouldn't describe you as peripheral at all. I just welcome the input that you can give and maybe the different perspective that you can give to test some of the things that we'll drive forward. I'm coming back to short. GDP.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
Be all and end all. I think you've got an important role to play there. So very much welcome your contributions, and hello, Mary Ann does as chair as well. Okay, are we happy to move to the recommendations then? As Colin mentioned there at paragraph 2, I'm going to have a mover and a seconder for those, please.
Happy to move, Chair.
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Liz. Okay, so I'll take the votes again, if that's okay. So Julian.
Happy to agree, Chair.
Thanks. Bridgen, John.
Agree, Chair.
Thanks. RT, Andrew.
Yes, agreed.
Thanks, Andrew. Merthyr, Brent.
Agreed, Chair.
Thanks. Vale, Liz.
Agreed, Chair.
Cardiff, Hugh.
Agreed.
Hugh. Cavilly, Sean.
Agreed.
Sean. Newport, Laura.
Agreed.
Thank you. Blarney Gwen, Steve.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Monmouthshire, Paul.
Agreed.
That's Paul and Torvine. That's me. I'm agreed. So again, it's a full house. Thank you very much, members, and thank you officers for their work on our business plan. As I say, I look forward to discussing that and testing ourselves against it as it moves forward. Okay, item 6 then on the agenda is the draft regional transport plan. Again, the recommendations are there at paragraph 2. Note that some of the appendices, if that's the correct plural, are exempt on this report. So if you do want to mention those in particular, then let me know. Otherwise, if I hand over to Colin on this one.
Myself. Thank you very much. So in terms of this, we've set out in the report the background and context to the regional transport plan. So as a CJC, we have statutory duties relating to, as I said before, regional economic wellbeing, spatial planning and transport planning. Our statutory duty related to that is to produce a regional transport plan with a 5-year lifespan for the first iteration, that's 2025 to 2030. So by background, an implementation plan for that was approved by this Corporate Joint Committee in November 2023. And we brought forward a case for change, transport for CCR, and that was recommended for approval by the Regional Transport Subcommittee in July 2024 and subsequently approved by the CJC as well. That case for change outlined the key stages of the production of the RTP. There has been some movement on that, which we've agreed with Welsh Government during the production of the document, but we still intend to meet the estimated adoption date of June 2025 for the plan. It's worth noting this has been developed iteratively in consultation with Regional Transport Subcommittee members whose input and insight has been invaluable, regional transport officers, other key internal and external stakeholders, including Welsh Government Transport for Wales. We brought forward drafts to the Regional Transport Subcommittee on October 24 and November 24, and each session provided important guidance and input. So in terms of the plan itself, we presented it as an appendix 1. So that's being developed in accordance with the guidance to CJCs on RTPs that was issued in 2023 by Welsh Government. Briefly, that requires that we present a case for change, setting the evidence-based overview of the current transport situation and the key issues to be addressed, a vision for the RTP and objectives setting out what it wants to achieve for the region, policies and high-level interventions for transport in CCR in our case, which will work towards achieving our vision objectives. A regional transport delivery plan which demonstrates how those policies will be delivered by local authorities, an integrated wellbeing appraisal that demonstrates how wellbeing is being considered, and plans for monitoring and evaluation. So all of that is included in the document set that you've received. Our vision is tightly aligned to our regional ambition. We return to those strategic goals of being competitive, connected and resilient as a region. They drive us, and regional transport underwrites that. We have a series of nine objectives with outcomes and key activities that have been developed based on the challenges and opportunities identified in the case for change. And I would point members to the policies. These are really critical pieces that will help us along towards delivery. Some context on the Regional Transport Delivery Plan, which is outlined in paragraph 17 forward of the report. That's been developed in close collaboration with the 10 South East Wales local authorities. It involves a list of schemes and interventions intended to be progressed to help achieve our vision for regional transport. It's important to note that those schemes do outline those up to 2030, but there are some longer term proposals that are included to ensure that we're laying the foundations for those moving forward. The guidance for the RTP does state that the Regional Transport Delivery Plan should only include schemes to be delivered by local authorities, but as with the RTP itself, we have considered the wider context. That means the strategic road network, that means the rail network. So we have got those in context, albeit that we don't have a direct role in the delivery of them, but we're very much working with the South Wales Trunk Road Agency and also with the Wales Rail Board on aligning objectives. Finally, on consultation, so the RTP has been developed utilising a collaborative process. We've engaged key stakeholders from across South East Wales. But as detailed in regional transport plans, the guidance for CJCs, there's a requirement to conduct engagement and consultation. To that end, the work plan has been agreed, which is outlined in the report. That will be beginning in February 2025 for a 12-week consultation period with general statutory consultation bodies and the wider public. With that, I will amend the recommendations of the report, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, the recommendations there at paragraph 2, we're asked to approve the draft RTP, RTDP and IWBA to proceed to public and wider stakeholder consultation, and secondly, note the approach to consultation on the RTP. Any questions there?
Andrew? I could say I'm happy to move.
Thanks, Andrew. I've got Liz and then John.
Can I just add my thanks to the team that have helped to pull this together and the work from the 10 local authorities. The only other thing just to say, I think it's important to note that there will no doubt be lots of other schemes out there the local authorities would like to include, but the parameters for this plan is what's deliverable and what's affordable and achievable in the next 5 years. So it's a realistic plan. But just thank everybody for their input into this. Thanks.
Yeah, likewise to thank you, Andrew, for your leadership on this and you driving it forwards. Liz, then John, and then Paul wants to come in.
Thanks, Chair. It just basically, I mean, I think it's worth noting the way in which officers have supported the Sustainable Development or the subcommittee and the Transport Committee working close together, that they've had shared workshops to make sure that both go sort of hand in hand, although slightly staggered apart, so that members are aware of the developments. And I think that's actually worked quite well to get a whole capital region approach to whether that be planning or transport planning. So I think this is a solid report with enough flexibility in it to cope with eventualities, which will also help us to explain more widely the sort of one eye on sustainability as we move forward as well. So I'm very happy to second this.
Liz, let's move by Andrew, seconded by Liz. I'll bring in John and then Paul, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I support the plan. It's great having this document and taking into account what Andrew just said about it is, what's achievable, realistic within 5 years. But I wouldn't be doing my job for people of Bridgend if I didn't get down to the never-ending question. I've been 25 years asking about Brackla Park and Ride, which doesn't appear anywhere from what I could find. And rightly or wrongly, we built the car park several years ago. It's a massive embarrassment locally. There were a car park and probably very little chance of a station. But it does need to be recognised somewhere. If it's not going to proceed and never going to proceed, I'd rather be honest with the public. Currently, there's still 25 years down the road talk about Brackla Park and Ride. Where is it? and it has its values with active travel, regional transport, many benefits. I just need to understand where that is. If it's not in this plan, where could or should it be?
Councillor Spanswick, I'll happily pick that up with officers as well, pretend with John and others, and I'll pick that up and come back to you if that's okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
Paul?
Thanks very much, and I'm happy to support the recommendation that we have a report which we can put to consultation. But I would like to rehearse an argument that I think Monmouthshire will make in response to that consultation. I've watched this document develop. I've not been a member of the relevant committee, but I've watched it develop and I watched it improve. And I thank everyone involved in all of that work. But I still think there is an unresolved tension in the definition of purpose of this report. I believe that the original ambition for those of us informing the CJC, supporting the legislation at the time, was that we would have a truly strategic document developed by local authorities, which would interlink with our economic ambition, interlink with our plans for land use throughout the region, and would inform investment at all levels of government, be that UK government, Welsh government, CJC, local authorities. That's one ambition of purpose, or one statement of purpose. The guidance which came out from Welsh Government gave a far narrower definition, that this would be simply a document that informed those expenditures which were allocated to the local authorities themselves or to the CJC. It becomes a sort of fairly narrow business plan on that definition. And I think what we've got is something which tries to resolve the tension between those two levels of ambition. I think we've got to be robust in contesting the Welsh Government's attempt to narrow the ambition for this document, and we'll say that in response to the consultation. I'll just give one illustration. The M48 runs the whole breadth of Monmouthshire, but it offers no access points within that route. We've raised this with Welsh Government. We think it's an obstruction to the economic development of the area, the development in general. We've raised it with the Cabinet Secretary, Ken Skates, and Ken Skates has responded in writing and on the record saying that he understands the argument and he wants to see the view of the region in the regional transport plan, and he'll be informed by that. And yet the narrow definition of the plan is that it does not make clear any of the region's views with reference to the trunk road, the Welsh Government's road network. I think that's the sort of illustration of the tension in understanding the purpose of this plan. Monmouthshire, I think, will explore that further in its response to the consultation. Thank you.
No, that's greatly appreciated. Thanks for Griffiths. And you know the journey we've been on to trying to resolve those tensions of, you know, the inclusion of rail, etc. And I think we'd absolutely appreciate that, and it's well a point well made. Thank you.
And just to say, Chair, as well, I think it does require that political coordination. And of course, Councillor Griffiths, we want this regional transport plan to be iterative. You know, hopefully the consultation process will be helpful in informing those future iterations, but it's certainly not something we see as being stuck in stone. And I think we're really looking forward to this consultation and engagement process, because I think hopefully that will give us the platform to be even more ambitious for the future. I guess we've had to take sort of a pragmatic approach this time around. But as I say, I think there's much more to come on this front. We're certainly not settling for low ambition. I think there's enough here to get us off the blocks. And in due course, we'll be well into the strategic development plan and, of course, the other iteration of our regional economic and industrial plan. So it's an evolving process. We've got a good platform to build on from here, but this certainly isn't the end point or indeed the end in itself.
Thanks, Mike. Steve, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And John's kind of point is similar for mine, really. I think I'm talking about the Abertlery Spur or the Abertlery Rail extension. So, Colin, just like some update on that, if there is any. You will be aware that there's, I'm sure that CCR are aware, there's loads of community tension around there. There's loads of interest. Anything will be forthcoming will be really useful. Thanks.
So, Councillor Thomas, on that one, I think again with Abertlery and with some of the plans that we had around the Future Railways programme, that's a conversation we've taken up with UK government. We're awaiting some feedback. I know I came and talked to your council a few weeks ago about that. So we're hoping to get an update to you and via Welsh Government as well in terms of future iterations of the local transport fund, which, as you know, now will be dealt with through this document. So we remain hopeful. I think it's a project of strategic importance. It isn't just important locally and operationally, albeit I accept that. But I think certainly for your area, there's some really strong evidence, I think, about supporting the different kinds of connectivity right across the Northern Valleys. And I think we can do a lot through the Northern Valleys initiative as well to promote some of those key locations to which we need much better levels of connectivity. So bear with us. We're trying to navigate through the different layers of government, but remain assured this is still a priority for us because we understand the significance to unlocking wider connectivity in the Northern Valleys.
Okay, thanks, Kel. And you'll understand I want to keep on the anvil because clearly the folks don't. I think this is happening. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, colleagues, and thanks to Andrew and to Regional Transport Subcommittee members, as well as officers here and back in our councils for their hard work on this. And as Paul said, I think it's just something that can develop as we take it forward. So look forward to those conversations as they take place. The report, the recommendations have been moved by Andrew and seconded by Liz. So we have to go forward for a vote on those terms. Okay, if I bring in Brecon Beacons National Park first.
Happy to support, Chair.
Brilliant. Bridgend.
Yeah, agree.
John. RCT.
Yes, support.
Andrew. Merthyr.
Yeah, I'm happy to support. Sorry, connection difficulty then.
Don't worry. Vale.
Agree, Chair.
Thanks, Liz. Cardiff.
Agree.
Hugh Cabilly.
Agree.
Thanks, Sean. Newport.
Agree.
Laura and Barney Gwent.
Agreed, Chair.
Monmouthshire.
Agree.
Paul and Torvine agreed. So that's agreed unanimously. Thank you. Which brings us to agenda item 7, which is the counter fraud, bribery and corruption strategy. I'm going to hand over to Liam for this one first.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So the report provides members with an updated counter fraud, bribery and corruption strategy for approval. Upon inception, the CJC adopted a counter fraud, bribery and corruption strategy in line with its constitution. But as we've developed over the course of the year as a public body, we just felt that it was a need to update the strategy to reflect current practice. The key change really is to demarcate the responsibilities of CCR and the support that RTD provides through an SLA, as there was some ambiguity within the previous document. So that's been updated following some discussions with RCT. RCT also provides us with some informal arrangements in terms of sharing best practice, quality networking, that sort of stuff. So thankful to RCT officers for their support in that regard. Alongside this, a fraud risk action plan has been developed, which outlines the key actions the CJC needs to undertake to make further improvements, and that's included as Appendix 2 of the report. And then sitting alongside that, there's the continual review and testing of our policies, procedures and processes as things develop in what can be sometimes a fast-moving arena. So just to ensure that we remain vigilant in this area. So there's 3 recommendations within the report, Chair. The first one is to note that this strategy was reviewed by the Governance and Audit Subcommittee at the meeting of the 17th of January, and no amendments were proposed. Secondly, the key recommendation then is to ask for approval of the updated counter-fraud, bribery and corruption strategy. And then finally to note that the development of the fraud risk action plan, and that we will regularly report progress against that to the Governance and Audit Committee. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Liam, and thank you to the Governance and Audit Subcommittee for their work on this. Any questions? If everyone's happy then, can I point us to the recommendations at paragraph 2 there? And we're asked to note the updated strategy, consider and approve the strategy at Appendix 1, and note development of the fraud risk action plan at Appendix 2, which will progress against which will be reported to the Governance and Audit Subcommittee throughout the year, and escalated to ourselves, CJC, where appropriate. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those proposals?
Happy to move, Chair.
So I take Liz moving and Andrew seconding those?
Yep.
Can I take us to a vote again? Brecon Beacons National Park?
Agree, Chair.
Julian? Member Jens?
Agree.
RCT?
Yes, support.
Bertha?
Yeah, happy to agree, Chair.
And Member Morgan?
Agree, Chair.
Is Cardiff?
Agree.
You, Cavilli?
Agree.
Sean Newport?
Agreed.
Or Blanick Went?
Agree.
Monmouthshire?
Agree.
And Torvine agrees. So that's carried. So that's that report. So it brings us to agenda item 8, which is the responsible investing strategy. I think that's
yes, it is. Thank you, Chair. So the report we present here is to seek comment and appropriate approval of the enhanced responsible investment policy and a new ESG environmental social governance scorecard for South East Wales Corporate Joint Committee. The previous version of CCR's responsible investment policy was robust, but it provided what we describe as a negative screen against selected areas to ensure the wider investment fund was deployed appropriately. So this revised responsible investment policy was first presented to Investment Board, or advisory board on this, in July 2024. And then we went through a process of iteration, engagement and consultation to develop it further, and that included with political leaders, and are grateful for the guidance. The most recent version is presented is updated, it's progressive, it remains proportionate, and it's seeking to support strong propositions and raise standards. It builds in a positive screening approach and is centred on ensuring we're maximising the impact of our investments going forward. So briefly on this, there are 14 principles of responsible investment, and it considers CCR's wider remit. Those principles span everything from human rights and modern slavery, green growth right through to financial crime prevention. As I said, it remains proportionate to our funding and our activity. It will work across our portfolio, and it seeks to support strong investment propositions that fulfill our regional growth ambitions. So while operating within these parameters, CCR and its fund managers, for example, for the Innovation Investment Capital, will remain accountable to the CJC, taking recommendations from the Investment Board. And this will be subject to annual review by CJC. I'll move on to the ESG scorecard. So again, briefly, this focuses on the 3 key areas of environmental, social and governance. It acts as a key implementation tool for the responsible investment policy. And, we've done a lot of looking around, and this is very unique for the public sector. It's based on best practice and research undertaken both nationally and internationally, and engagement with the likes of the Scottish National Investment Bank. The scoring system provides us with insight and data that we use to inform future investment strategy, and it's complementary to our routine monitoring data. Again, there will be annual data collection to record the progress of investing over time as well. So with that, Chair, the recommendations are on page 6, where we seek the South East Wales Corporate Joint Committee and comment and if appropriate approve these documents.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, recommendations of paragraph 43, I think, on the slides. Yeah, thanks. Okay, any questions on this report? On the recommendations, sorry, John, yeah, come in.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome report. Some great stuff in there. And just like to compliment the section there on fair work. It's great to see that we are looking to exclude investment in businesses or projects that will not commit to paying all employees the real living wage as a minimum. So I really welcome that. It's great to see. And that's definitely one very positive part of that. There's lots of great stuff. I fully support it.
Thank you, John. Any other questions or comments? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder for those recommendations that we approve the responsible investment policy and that we acknowledge the ESG scorecard as a key implementation tool for that policy?
Move the report, Chair.
Steve, to move the report. Thank you, Steve.
Second.
And John, seconds. So I'll move to a vote on that. And you'll see I'm working from the west today. I promise I'll change if I ever get to again, just to, don't accuse me of being anti-Monmouthshire, because I'm certainly not. Recognition National Park.
Yes, happy to agree, Chair. And just to confirm, I'll be leaving the meeting after this item. Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance today, Julian. Fridgend.
Agree.
Steve Andrews had to go as me. So Merthyr.
Agreed, Chair.
And Vale.
Agree, Chair.
Liz Cardiff.
Great.
Thank you. To Philly.
Agreed.
Sean Newport.
Agreed.
Laura and Barney Gwent.
Agreed, Chair.
Steve and Monmouthshire.
Agree.
Paul and Torvine is agreed. So that is carried with 10 votes. So that brings to an end the public part of the meeting. I'd like to just get agreement to move to private session because the last report is exempt from publication under Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Is everyone happy to do that?
Right.
Agree, Chair.
That's agreed. And we're okay to move to private session.